Thanks for joining this webinar. My name is Xiaohua. I'm the co-founder and chief instructor at WeCloudData. So I'm going to spend about an hour or an hour and a half to walk you through the data science job search process, but we're going to reverse engineer that, which means the typical process starts from, just doing some research, figure out if data science is something, or a path you would like to go down. And then you need to find some courses, go through training, gain skills, and then start to build portfolios and resume. In the end, you're going to go through interviews, job search, and then hopefully get a job, right? I would like to reverse engineer that today, which means we're going to go backwards, right? Your goal is to become a data scientist, right? If that's what brings you here today, then you need to understand what is a data scientist job ask for, right? What's important in terms of getting me a job. So I think if you're at the beginning of the journey, it's actually important to understand what you need, right? On a resume, or what you need to excel in an interview to get a job, right? And then let's talk about, how to build up your resume, what's missing, what kind of skills you need to acquire. So hopefully after this session, you have a pretty good understanding of what you need to do in order to get a data scientist job, okay? Feel free to ask questions in the Zoom chat. I'll stop from time to time to answer some questions, and we'll have time at the end to ask questions as well. All right, let's get started. So let's talk about data science interview. Let me make this font size bigger. All right. There are a ton of interview questions. If you just Google, you'll find a lot of services and websites out there that provide data scientist interview questions. But I think there are two questions, right? You always need to nail. The rest of the questions some of them are technical, but I think the key information you need to provide in an interview is basically, well, you need to tell them who you are, and then you need to tell them why they should hire you, right? So these are probably the two most important things you need to answer. So let's start from tell me about yourself, right? This is a seemingly very simple question. Right? Most people would just, start by introducing themselves, education background, work experience, and things like that. But what's important? Like, what information is important in terms of like impressing people, right? I've gone through a lot of data scientist resumes. I've done a ton of interviews as well. I've hired data scientists in the past when I was leading a team. I also helped friends or recruiters hire people. And now I'm also coaching students how to get a job, right? So based on my past experience, I think what really helps you stand out is the experience, right? If experience in data science job market is way more important than education. And of course there are different types of data scientist jobs. There are jobs that ask for specialized skills, advanced degrees, right? But we're talking about, let's say 70-80% of the jobs out there, because there are always jobs that only look for PhDs. That's not what we're going to talk about today. And I think most of us are career switchers, right? Or you're either new grad, or you're switching career to data science, or maybe you're a data analyst and you would like to become a data scientist. So from that perspective, I think experience is the most important thing. It helps you get more interviews if you have the relevant experience. And it also becomes the talking points during interviews, because most of those questions are going to be directed to what you have worked on in the past, right? And then followed by skill set. Skill set definitely important. But I think during an interview, people are more interested in understanding what you've done. So most of the time they ask you about the projects instead of say, oh, can you tell me about your Python skills? Can you tell me about your AWS skills? but they're more likely to ask you how, or have you ever, or how did you apply your Python AWS, experience in a project in the past, right? So it's more about talking about your experience, right? But skill set definitely helps you get, past, the ATS and get interviews. So let's talk about them. Experience. There are different types of experiences you can put on your resume. What do you think is the most important experience if you would like to, stand out in a competitive market? Job experience relevant to the job I'm applying for, of course, 100%. I think directly related experience, right? It could be, but I'm assuming that we are not data scientists, right? Otherwise, we're not going to have this conversation. Assuming you're switching or you want to become a data scientist, then I think direct experience is the most relevant. Whether it's internship and co-op, I think these are very, very important experience to have. And if you don't have work experience as a data scientist yet, right, that's a fact that you cannot change at the moment. So I don't think we can have too much influence on that. So let's move on to the next important thing, right? So in my opinion, it's the real client projects. So even if you're not hired as a full-time or contract data scientist right now, are you able to sort of demonstrate that you have some experience working with real clients? I think that's very important. Because most of the time, I think employers will be asking about a project, but from their perspective, a project is not just getting a data set from Kaggle, right, and then do some analysis. Those are technical experience or technical skills. But they would like to, because I think hiring is more about finding someone who's like, of course, decent, right skills, but also lower risk, right? So that's why they're looking for experiences. So if you have worked in a project that has a team environment, the roles are clearly defined. Maybe you're the technical data scientist, but there's also project manager. There might be clients, right? Or business teams or IT tech teams. And that feels like a real environment. So whenever you can, I highly recommend you to find real experience, right? So real client project experience is very important. And you have to create opportunity for that. And we can talk about how to gain these experiences. But for example, see if you can find freelance opportunities, right? Freelance jobs sometimes means it's unpaid, but you're here for the experience. So whenever you deal with a real client, that means there's a business pain point, and that's the problem you're trying to help them solve. So that means there's back and forth, negotiations or discussion, right? Trying to clarify things, trying to understand what the client need, and then you have to translate those business pain points, requirements into, the technical stuff. And that happens to be one of the most important thing in a data science project, because it's very easy to find skilled people out there, but when you put them on a project, can they can they get things done quickly? And that requires experience. And a lot of times even just trying to communicate, like even being able to book a meeting with a busy client is also very important skill to have, because if you couldn't get your client on the call and try to clarify something, and you can easily waste 2 weeks of time doing something that they don't need, right? So it's always good to ask questions in the real job. Before you jump into whatever analysis you do, right? So real experience, but you can, see if you can get freelance opportunity. You can start from your friends. Do you have friends that run businesses that need your help? Maybe the business is not sophisticated, but do they need web scraping help? Do they need competitive analysis, right? It doesn't always have to be a machine learning project that involves millions of records, right? It could be just web scraping for your friend to do competitive analysis. And you can do text analytics as well. You can do clustering, you can do topic modeling, right? There are a lot of things you can do. So that is probably even more important than your co-op and internship opportunity, because a lot of employers, if they see that you only have the co-op experience, then instantly they think that you're very junior. So you probably fit into the junior data scientist, category. But if you have real client projects, or maybe starting your own business, maybe it's not successful, but you applied, data science, you're trying to tackle some data science problems on your own. I think those will be very interesting to a lot of the employers. Next, of course, if you don't have real experience dealing with real people, real data set real business problems, then portfolio project is really important. I think everyone know that you need to have a couple of projects that you can showcase to the employer. Portfolio projects can be built through through your learning, different learning stages. You can do that in a boot camp. You can do that when you're taking a master's degree program, or you can do your side projects as well. Most of the time you will be working with curated data set you download from Kaggle, or you can do web scraping and collect data yourself. But in this case, there's no real business need, and you have to create those, right? So one of my suggestions to anyone who want to make your project sound or feel as real as possible is that you have to think about it from a business perspective. What business problem can your project potentially solve? And you have to describe that in a very business friendly fashion, and that's important. So for example, if you look at someone's data science project presentation, and if you see someone starting from the data problems or the machine learning algorithms they've used, a bunch of visualizations, that those are not the best presentation that's going to help you get a job, because you start with technical stuff right away. Maybe the hiring manager is a technical tech lead or something. They might enjoy the technical details, but everyone knows that you clearly, as working as a data scientist, a lot of times it's about education, and you need to educate your client, and sometimes even help them discover what they really need. Because when the business users come to you, they will say, oh, I have this problem, I have that problem, and then can you help me use clustering to do this analysis? But a lot of times you realize that they don't really understand what their pain points are, and you sort of need to ask a lot of good questions to even help them to understand what they really need. And then you're going to offer the technical solution, right, or suggestion, before you start to do data collection, data analysis, and machine learning. So for business presentations or data science related presentations, it's always important to start from business, right? What is the business problem you're trying to solve? What's the pain point? And then start and help the reader understand what problem you're trying to solve, and then start from data collection or data understanding before you jump into machine learning. Okay, so that would be my recommendation for anyone who want to build a portfolio project. Try to pick a business problem and then go find the data set. There's some other experiences you can put on the resume, but those will be other work experience that may not be directly related to data science. But if you worked as an accountant, right, or mechanical engineers in the past, and this is not like an interview workshop, so I won't spend too much time on this, but my general recommendation would be, if it's not that relevant, sometimes it's okay to remove or hide some of these information, because it can become distracting. You're just telling people that you come from a non-data science background. Rather, you want your resume to be very to the point, and the entire message you're trying to deliver is that I'm a data scientist, I can do the job, right? And then convince them to hire you. You don't want to show them anything that's sort of not helping you to stand out. But if you do have a lot of past experiences and you think they will help you, for example, leadership skills, right? You may have worked as a project manager, people manager in the past. You have great client communication experience. worked in consulting. All of these will be very, very useful. So you need to highlight those experience, of course. But definitely don't put too much weight on those experience that's not directly related to data science. Okay. So these are the experience. That's the most important thing that goes on your resume. Everything you do, I think, should help, needs to be geared towards this to help you build up real experience. Otherwise, I think in today's job market, it's very hard to stand out because, you may feel that the job market is very competitive. I can tell you, like, for a teaching assistant position we posted them, there are 300 people applying for it. And a lot of them are actually PhDs and people. Some of them are just interested in doing a side job or they're passionate about teaching. But a lot of them are actually seriously looking for jobs. And even if it's it's a part-time opportunity. Right? So it's very competitive. But when I go through those resumes, you'll notice that a lot of people have the right technical skills, but they just don't feel like they have enough experience. So if I only have 5 candidates, then I would probably look into all of them. I would, believe that they all have potential and would like to chat with them and see who's the best, candidate. But when I have 300 resumes like this, it's more about, well, I don't have time to interview all of them. They all seem to have Python machine learning experiences. They know scikit-learn, PyTorch, but who's the best, right? My time is also very important. So I want to interview as few people as possible, while at the same time still be able to find the right candidate I want. So I'm looking for something extra, and definitely it's the experience. Okay. So what does this imply? This means that, well, do you really need to spend all of those time, getting more certifications, taking more Coursera courses? Is it really going to help you? Or should you focus on just building more projects? And I would choose the latter, which is focus more on getting, more interesting projects done. Once you have enough project, even if it's just portfolio project, and, write blog post, right? Improve your GitHub. All of these will pay off instead of just pursuing more courses and certifications. Most of the time, those are not very useful because other people have it too. It's not going to help you stand out unless they're unless they're looking for, let's say, someone who's specialized in AWS, machine learning tools like SageMaker. So in that case, maybe having a certification works, but it depends. Okay. All right. So experience is the most important, followed by skill set, right? And obviously you need to have the relevant skill set. If they're looking for 5 key skills and they only have 2, then you're much less likely to get an interview, right? It's hard to sort of pass the screening stage. But during an interview, right, you still need to talk about the skill set. If you're at this stage, right, when people ask you, to tell me about yourself, that means you already hit the right keywords, right? You're already sitting in front of, the hiring manager. So when you describe your skill set, it's important to give people the impression or deliver this message, right? That's very important. The message should be, I know 10, 20 different tools, and I have used them in 1 or 2 projects. Right? I know how to put them together. That's very important. So when you work on projects, right, you absolutely need to try your best to make yourself like a full stack data scientist. What that means is that you shouldn't just be working on working with Jupyter notebooks and only focus on data analysis, visualization, and machine learning. It will be harder and harder for you to get a job if that's what the only thing you're focusing on, because companies are starting to look for, let's say the economy is not very good. We're hitting the recession, or maybe we're in the recession, and they used to have the budget to hire 5 data scientists, and now they only have budget to have hire 2, right? So that means people, but the amount of work company will want you to do is the same or even more with ChatGPT, right? So that means companies are actually looking for talents that are more versatile. Like you should not only just know a bunch of data science packages. You need to know how to work with, cloud infrastructure like AWS, setting up EC2 instances, understand how cloud storage work. It doesn't mean that you need to be a platform engineer, or it doesn't mean that you need to have the same amount of knowledge as a data engineer or DevOps engineer, but you just need to know enough, right? So that it can be self-sufficient. When the company has a project, you're not going to rely on IT or the data engineers to help you set things up, because you might end up just waiting for them to free up their time and the project will be delayed, right? Are you able to read some documentations, watch a bunch of YouTube videos, and just do some, hacking and get things working, right? That's very important. And so that's why data scientists need to understand a little bit about data engineering as well, like understand how data ingestion work, right? Understanding data ingestion or some of these, like, it's not the most important skill a data scientist need to have. If you go work for a big company, those jobs are handled by data engineers, right? So you work in a pretty pure environment. Like, you just need to focus on, certain things, right? But when you're looking for jobs, you don't always end up getting, opportunities from the big companies, because those companies will have, thousands of people applying for those jobs, right? And there are a ton of PhDs competing in that area as well. So chances are you might be interviewing with like small to medium, sized businesses, and they're all looking for people who are flexible, right? Can pick up things, new concepts quickly, and can do a lot of different things. So in that case, I think when you build your portfolio project or when you explain your experience to people, you will impress them if you tell them that this is the project I worked on. I, came up with my original idea. I collected data myself through web scraping. I store the data in databases, which means I need to understand how to do a little bit data modeling and store data, right? So that means you're doing in data ingestion, and then you're going to do visualization. You even built some dashboard before you start the machine learning. So if you can show 2 to 3 projects like that, it's going to help you beat, I would say, 80–85% of the competitors out there. Because I've reviewed a ton of resumes, I can tell you most people don't have this kind of impressive portfolio project, right? So that means, yes, 20 different tools, but did you acquire those skill set or learn those tools in 10 different courses? Or did you work on 2 projects that allows you to practice all of them? That's a very big difference. So I didn't list any keywords here, like, Python, PyTorch, SQL, but that's the message I'm trying to deliver. Work on comprehensive end-to-end projects that allows you to show many different skill sets. You don't expect to just become a data scientist nowadays by only knowing machine learning and scikit-learn. I'm pretty sure you're not going to get a data scientist job. Okay. All right. Education. Education, I think, is something that's a little bit hard to change in a short amount of time. Having a master's degree, PhD, of course, always useful. But if you don't have a master at the moment, I wouldn't say it's a big problem, because when we did some job market analysis, and we noticed that not all jobs require a master's degree. Again, in terms of the importance, right, or relevancy, having relevant experience is way more useful than having a master's degree or even PhD. So some people don't believe me on this, but I can tell you that I think I have enough experience to tell you that education is not the most important. There are always companies out there looking for PhDs, people who have masters in computer science. But if that's not what the background you have, you can still have confidence, because maybe you're not competing directly in those category, but that's just 15% of the jobs out there. There are a lot of jobs out there that, that treat experience way more important than education. And there are jobs out there don't even require a master's degree, right? So just keep that in mind. All right, so tell me about yourself. And another important thing you need to sort of nail, or question you need to nail, is why should we hire you? So my only suggestion here is that just keep in mind that you need to do a lot of research before you go to interviews. I would say most of the time it's not about you or yourself. It's more about what you bring to the table, which means during the interview, you need to understand, you always need to have good listening skills. Like you need to have this aptitude to listen and try to understand people's pain points. When you work as a data scientist on project, you're trying to understand what the client needs. I've worked with a lot of people who work with me on projects. They never ask me questions. So then I know, like, when they get back to me, I know something's going to be wrong because I haven't even told them what I really want, right? And some people just assume that this is how things should be done, and that's obviously not the best way. Okay, so listen when you're working with business teams on projects, right? Try to understand their pain point. But during the interview, it's the same. You need to do some research before you go to the interview. You want to know, how big is the team? Is this an established data science team that has 20, 30 data scientists already? The team has been around for 10 years. Or is this a new team? And the person interviewing you is the director or head of data science who's just starting a new team. And in that case, he might be looking for someone who's completely different. Yes, he needs someone who have data science skills. But at the moment, when he's starting a team, he needs someone who has really strong communication skills and also relationship building skills. Like, you're still going to do all the technical stuff, right? But he's going to bring you to different meetings, trying to sell the value of data science and to prove that they can generate value for different businesses. In that case, I think being able to understand what the clients need is very important, and that's probably what the director will be looking for. So the conversation you're going to have in that interview is way more important than the technical details. Like, if you are talking to a director or a VP, just keep in mind, telling a good story is way more important than like telling him like what machine learning algorithm you have used. That's very important. But of course, a lot of times you're probably going to talk to the technical manager first, right? But my assumption here is that just keep in mind, when you talk to someone, right, do research, try to understand their background, try to sort of infer what is the intent. Why are they hiring someone? Is it backfilling someone who has left, or are they just starting a new team? You may have a question like, how would I know? And well, you have to pick up some of those cues, right? When they do the self-introduction at the beginning of the interview, you want to ask some questions about them. That shows your curiosity, right? But sometimes they will just tell you, like, yeah, I'm also new on this job. I'm starting a new data science team, blah, blah. They'll tell you, and listen carefully, because that tells you you might need to adopt a different way to answer those questions and become less technical, right? First impression is very important, okay? I've done some mock interviews in the past, and some students in our boot camp tend to say that, well, I think this is a great team. I have a ton of like learning opportunities. That's probably not a good answer, because no one cares about you learning. Like, when you join the company, and yeah, HR, the company has culture. They want to make sure that you have a path, right? You're learning new things. But when they make a hiring decision, they want you to be hired to generate value, to just do the work. It's not about training you or providing opportunity for you to grow. It's all about what you can provide to the team, to the company. So keep that in mind, okay? So whenever you describe your experience, you should always tell them what value have you generated for the client, right? Even though it's just a dashboard, but that could be the very first dashboard for this startup. Then it's way more influential than your first machine learning model, because that's the first time you're helping people to generate insight, to think about, like, become more analytical, right? So that's very important. And you may actually bring some culture change to the business as well. So you may think that, well, I'm just building a dashboard. Doesn't sound as exciting. No, I think when you're building up your experience, you actually need to deliberately work on things that are non-machine learning related to sort of, improve or increase your experience in data analytics, because all data scientists need to be good at data analytics as well. Okay. I hope I made sense. But that's the interview. We're doing this reverse engineering, right? So hopefully you understand what's what's the most important thing. I don't think that's surprising, right? Experience is always the most important. I sort of touched on, where to acquire these experiences. and what's important when explaining to people the skill set you have, right? And then being able to tackle some of these questions like, why should we hire you? Okay. All right, let's go backwards. But how do you even get this interview? Right? You need strong resume. So it's important to sort of understand what goes on your resume. First of all, I think structure is very important. So one page is never wrong, right? Unless you have years of experience that are experiences that are related to data analytics, then maybe it's worth it to have 2 pages. I see a lot of people like putting like publications, and they can have like 3 pages of articles and publication. It's more like a CV. It's but just don't put that on the resume. I don't think it's that relevant. So what goes on your 1 page resume? Of course, it starts from your basic contact information, your name, address, and phone number. What's more important is you need to have LinkedIn, GitHub link, and blog post. I think most people put email. I would say 80% of the resumes I've reviewed, they'll probably have a LinkedIn link. Less than 50% definitely have GitHub links, and maybe like 5%, 10% of those resumes have a blog post link. Should be less than 10%. Right? But I think having GitHub and blog posts, like Medium blogs, will be very helpful. These little things actually help you stand out, trust me. Being able to write blog posts means that, it's sort of, I can tell that this person can do documentation really well. And that's very important skill set. In the past, on the consulting, business side, we actually got a pretty big project because the client thinks that we are, I think we collaborated in the past and on a really small scale, but they chose us instead of the big companies like Accenture, mainly because they think that we can do documentation really, really well. Maybe, in that small collaboration, we sort of impressed them with the documentation we did at the end. So that's very interesting. Okay. Okay, so what's next? I see a lot of people putting like summary of qualifications, right? So again, we're talking about a 1-page resume. So if you only have 1 page, I don't think it's necessary to have summary of qualifications. So I would actually vote against it. Because what are you really going to put in summary of qualifications? Like, do you think people are really going to have this time to read it, right? Because most of the time it's just text, and it just takes me more time to sort of go through it, dissect the key information, and when I review resumes, I usually just block out 2 hours and say, okay, I need to go through 50 resumes in the next 2 hours, right? I mean, I don't have a lot of time on each resume. And maybe the first couple of resumes, I'm going to be a little bit slow, and then I realize I'm too slow. I need to speed up. And then for the new resumes, I will just jump to the keywords and experience right away, right? I'll stop just reading those qualifications because I need something that's quicker, more direct, right? Because I know the skill set I'm looking for. I know the experience I'm looking for. And I really don't know how you are going to describe yourself. So I don't want to spend that time trying to understand how you understand yourself. Okay. And also, sometimes you just don't know if that's going to expose weakness. Because I've seen a lot of people putting like, I'm an aspiring data scientist, right? That's confusing because the message is that, well, you're trying to become a data scientist. Well, but this is not a junior position. We're not hiring new grads. Then you're losing the opportunity, right? Your message on your resume should be, again, I'm just repeating this. It should be, the strong, clear message is that I am an experienced data scientist. I have project experience. I fit this job, right? let's have a chat. That should be the message your resume is delivering. So go back and take a look at your resume, right? Are there things that preventing you from like displaying this kind of message, right? Are you calling yourself like, aspiring data science scientist or engineer? Are you trying to tell people you're trying to sort of grow in a position? Like, right, if you're looking for internship, maybe, but considering that you have like 500 competitors, I don't think it's gonna, do any good by telling people you're trying to learn and grow in this organization, right? So my recommendation is just don't write summary of qualifications, and you definitely don't have to put like you have really good time management skills and project management skills. Everyone can do that, and it's just trying to these are filler words that helps you get some interviews or like pass the ATS, but data scientist is a technical position. Like if people care about your project management experience or they care about your communication skills, they want to see that in your experience description. Like I've seen a ton of people saying that I have great project management skills, I have great communication skills. And then when I look at the project experience description, it's all like, it's very technical and very dry. It's basically describing the models, the performance, accuracies, right? Then I just don't believe that he has great communication skills. He doesn't even know how to tell a good story about his project. Okay, so if you only have one page, let's save some, screen real estate for the important things. For example, experience and skills, right? So let's forget about summary of qualifications. Let's just put keywords. Keywords indeed matter a lot, right? My recommendation for skill set is just list your technical skills and make it easy for the readers, right? Whoever who's going through your resume. For example, you can create different sections like programming, coding, data visualization, or you call that data analysis, and then machine learning, big data, maybe data engineering, but have a couple of buckets, right? And then add some relevant keywords. It could be, an algorithm or a tool that a package. But these are, you do need to make sure that you have the right keywords, right? So that's the skill set section. So that means skill set should probably be on the top. Maybe I'm different, but I realize that when I'm going through resumes, I'm always looking for some, keywords. Like I scanned the skill section really quickly, but I'm just looking for, keywords that will stand out. But the most amount of time I spend is definitely like on the experience, like on the work experience or direct experience. Okay. But if you don't have a data scientist experience, in this case, then just highlight your personal projects. These are portfolio projects, or it could be freelance project. And if you really couldn't find anything, can you start something on your own? Like start your own business. It doesn't cost you a lot of money to start your own business if you have ideas. And then just try to treat that as a portfolio project. That may help you because I think being entrepreneurial is very, very useful. And a lot of people like to work with, talents like that. Okay. And at least when you start your own business, you're trying to solve some problems, right? So when you work on, when you describe your projects, real client project experience, portfolio project experience, you need to like just, if you have like, let's say room for 5 bullet points, right? Definitely don't start with like, data preparation or machine learning. And I've seen a lot of examples where people just, say I tried 5 different algorithms, right? And we're talking about like hyperparameter tunings, talking about like the model accuracy, different evaluation metrics. And those like feels like just like the exercises you've done, or when you go through learning phase, these are important. But when you work on a real life project, these are really not that important. Like, of course, you need to have a good metric. Of course, you need to have an important algorithm. You have to make some decisions on like what approach you're going to take. I'd rather talk about the approaches instead of like the specific algorithms. You can mention those keywords, but the way you describe that should be more structured. Okay. Always start from like a business pain point. Like, what problem are you trying to solve? Did you try to solve? Right. Even if it's your original idea, you're trying to do some web scraping, like why do you even want to scrape data from Reddit? Okay. Or some movie website. But like you have to sort of reason and tell people what's the motivation of doing this project, because you're going to spend 2 weeks a month on this project. Why? Right. And that's why sometimes employers will ask you questions like, tell me about one of the project and why you pick this project. Why do you choose to work on this project? And then talk about data. Let's not skip the data part. Data sometimes is even more important than the machine learning algorithms, right? Because garbage in, garbage out. So ideally, you're not telling people they just worked with a CSV file. It will be great that data come from databases. You're using SQL to extract data, prepare and manipulate data, right? Even better, you've ingested data yourself, right? Maybe you set up the cloud infrastructure. That's actually going to expose you to better opportunities if the companies are looking for someone who's like a hybrid, right? Just recently, we posted a job that was probably 3-4 weeks ago. There was a company, someone I know who's starting a new, become a director of a insurance company, and she's looking for someone. I submitted some resumes, and she didn't feel very excited about those. And then she told me that, well, I'm starting a new team. Right now, I need someone who is a hybrid, who knows data science and data engineering. But at this point, knowing Spark and big data is more important than machine learning. But later on, he's going to do a lot of machine learning. So this is still a data scientist job, but I only have one head count. I'm not going to write the code myself. I need this person to be able to write Spark code. Okay. So that's why being able to show your data manipulation skills, very important. Try not to ignore that. And also, of course, sometimes when you work on the project, you actually have to just be patient and just do it. Because you may think that, well, it's just, loading some tables, data sets into, a bunch of tables and write SQL. I think I know this. I'm going to skip it, right? I've worked with students like that on projects because we have real client projects, and the students say, yeah, I think that's pretty, straightforward for me. And then, so she didn't really spend a lot of time on it. As a project related to, like basically, analytics data on the website, right? And with that experience, she got a lot of interviews. And I think that was during April this year when the job market became better. And she got a lot of interviews. And interestingly, several interviews are actually directly related to the project. Those are like, digital analytics related. And they were asking her a lot of detailed questions, and she couldn't answer it, even though she knew she could do it. But just because you only have a couple of seconds to think about what you've done during the interview, and you have to sort of quickly respond to those. And people can tell that if you get stuck and you think about it for 5 seconds, then they know you don't have a lot of experience, or you didn't spend a lot of time on the project, right? So that's very important. So I'll give you another example. We collaborated with one of the largest electronic company that produces like cell phones, back in 2019. And one of the students did some clustering analysis, and she went to an interview, and they said, how big is the data set? How many records? How many columns? And somehow the student got stuck on it for a couple of seconds. And then he just lost all the credibility. He actually didn't, well, that was one of the issues, right? It was a team project, and he didn't perform really well. And other students or other people did all the work. But he's trying to sort of say that, well, I was in this project, but then he couldn't even explain how many records there were in the table, right? And then of course he didn't get the job. So I think you need to whatever projects you worked on, you need to be very familiar with the dimensions and some of those basic statistics about the data. That also shows how well you know about the business problem as well, right? And then they introduce like, the methodologies, approaches, or the architecture of your data science problems, the pipelines, and then of course, 1 or 2 bullet points to explain machine learning, okay? Now, this is more generic data science project, but if you work on more specialized topics like natural language processing, computer vision, if that's the case, just go very technical, that's fine. So in your portfolio of projects, you should have like more generic analytics and data science problems, but you can definitely have more specialized, projects that focus on computer vision, NLP, but but you'll definitely need to have 1 to 2 business-oriented projects, right? And then coupled with, NLP projects using deep learning and things like that. I think if people want the technical depth, those will help, right? But honestly, majority of the data science, opportunities out there don't really need you to be expert in NLP or large language modeling, because if they really need this kind of talent, the job title might not be data scientist, to be honest. Okay. All right. So that's the project and experience, and then education, of course, on your resume. So again, I'm talking about the structure here. In contact, right, on the top, ideally add GitHub and blog posts. You don't really have to have summary of qualifications if you only have 1 page. Skill set, very important. Make it easy for the readers. So create different sections, right? And then add keywords. Most important part is experience. And your most important experience should absolutely on the first page. Because I've read resumes where education is on the top, and then like summary of qualification, and then education, and then coursework, and then skills, and then experience on the second page. Honestly, I wouldn't have the patience. I would definitely just skip, because I just think that this person don't even know how to write resume. I couldn't rely on this person to do documentation or to work in a team. Okay, I may have my biased view. I exaggerated a little bit when I do this talk today, but I just hope you understand what's more important on the resume. Okay. All right. So we talked about resumes and interviews. Next, let's talk about how to acquire these skills, right? So I think my recommendation here is really just a structured learning path. But I also recommend you to read WeCloudData's Data Science Career Guide. So there's a link here. So it explains what you need to learn. As a data scientist, you need to pick up programming. I don't think it's a surprise to you. You need to know Python and SQL. And then data analytics and data science skills, right? Before we talk about machine learning. That means data collection. That means data collection sometimes means reading data from APIs or doing web scraping, and then do data extraction from, using SQL to extract data from databases or a data lake. Sometimes you think that, well, isn't that data engineer's job? No, it's not. It really depends on what environment you work in. I worked as data scientist before. I built and led teams, and I can tell you that when I work as an individual contributor, like a data scientist, I did web scraping. I collected data from APIs. I set up databases myself. And of course, it's like a 70 people startup, right, that had $50 million investment. And I'm still the only one doing all of these, right? And of course, data scientists should always be ready to do data preparation, exploration, visualization, and some statistical analysis, right? Now, if you have a project that covers all of these, at least it gets you a data analytics or data analyst job, right? And then the machine learning part, of course, can help you get a data scientist job. A lot of data scientists out there, this is what they do instead of machine learning, right? They're not always going to build machine learning models, and sometimes it depends on the business needs, right? But when you prepare to sort of upskill yourself and learn data science, you absolutely need to learn machine learning, because if you don't know machine learning, then at best you can get a BI or data analytics job. You should not, it will be hard for you to sort of stand out and get a data scientist job. So you need to know algorithms, right? Working with different libraries and APIs. You need to understand unsupervised learning, supervised learning. I won't spend too much time on this, but definitely read the career guide. You need to know machine learning algorithms, and then maybe touch on some specialization topics such as deep learning as well. And it's important to understand the workflow, right? So how do you do data extraction and preparation for machine learning? Feature engineering and pre-processing, right? So how do you pre-process the data, selective features, and then model training, hyperparameter tuning. Now, a lot of people tend to sort of highlight model training and parameter tuning and the algorithms they use on PowerPoint presentations and on their resumes as well. These are not the most important thing to go on your resume, to be honest. You can touch on these keywords, but when you tell people that you actually have the experience, then the end-to-end workflow is important because that tells people that you've worked on something that's a little bit bigger scope instead of just getting a data set and train some models. Okay. And then model interpretation is also very important, and that's why I highly recommend the job seekers to prepare PowerPoint presentations for the portfolio project. And you can upload that to Google Drive and share the link with people. You can put the link on your resume as well, so people can click on it, right? Being able to write presentation or PowerPoint or whatever tool you use to generate PowerPoint presentation. You can even use ChatGPT, but it can help you with the content, right? So what goes on the PowerPoint is more important than the formatting itself. Okay. This is kind of equivalent to having a blog post, but highly recommend you spend some effort on it. Okay. That's machine learning. And then if you truly want to stand out or even get exposed to some of the intermediate level or even senior jobs, I think you need to know big data. It is nice to have, but sometimes for some position, it is must have. It all depends on the companies. Some companies, they never use pandas because they have massive data. Pandas is not going to be very helpful in that environment. You're not going to run notebooks on your laptop. It's all going to be on servers and even on distributed clusters like, Databricks and EMR clusters running Spark. And that's why I need to know Apache Spark, a little bit about cloud computing. But again, it looks like you need to learn a lot of things, but you're not trying to become a certified cloud engineer. You're not trying to become like a DevOps engineer. So just know how to use them, some of the services. You don't, like, AWS has more than 100 services. You probably just need to know like 5, 6 of them. That's good enough. Because in real life, I think a data scientist, if you work for a big insurance company, then everything is provisioned by the IT. So you just need to log into the notebook environment. And that's, all you need to do is just write code and do analysis. But if you work for a startup, then you're probably expected to launch the instance yourself and sometimes even automate the provisioning of the service. You need to be able to extract data from Amazon S3, AWS S3, cloud storage. It's not hard. And launching instances, just getting familiar with Linux command line, definitely not hard. You just need to know enough to be able to complete some interesting projects. And then when you actually join the company, you always have, time to pick up new things. So I wouldn't worry too much about becoming like specialized in cloud, but you absolutely need to know the basics. Okay. And some data engineering knowledge will also be very helpful, but I don't want to make it sound like you need to become a data engineer in order to become a data scientist. That's not the case. But understanding end-to-end workflow pipelines, being able to do data ingestion, it just like becomes self-serve. And what if there's no data engineers to help you prepare data? Just be ready to do that yourself, then you'll be good. So these are the things you need to learn. And then, of course, along the way, try your best to build a portfolio of projects, like 2 to 3 projects, ideally 4 to 5 projects. And then we talked about experiences, right? It'll be great if you can have some sort of, freelance and real client project experience. But even without those, and if you can build really decent end-to-end data science projects, you will still beat majority of the people out there. Okay. All right. And then how do we get started? Right, to learn skills. But then, so in that case, you have so many different options, right? Do your research, try to understand the job market. You definitely need to read a bunch of job descriptions, right, before you start to create your study plan. Because I think you sort of need to understand what's in demand in the market. I can tell you all of these, I can list them out. Uh, it's very different. Um, Still very different from like just reading 10 job descriptions yourself, right? To see what companies actually want. By the way, I think we published a blog post recently about the job market. Maybe you can take a look at them. The future of data science, but this is basically our job market analysis. It has a lot of job market statistics. Actually, two of the students helped us, did a lot of interesting analyses. But yeah, take a look at it. Hope that helps you if you're at the beginning stage of your data science journey. Okay. And take some online courses, right? Before you go for boot camps, master's programs, because the cost will be high. It's not just the tuition, it's also the time you're going to spend on it and all the struggle you're going to go through, right? So make sure that it's something you actually would enjoy. Take some online coding courses, classes, and see if that actually is something you like or you can actually, enjoy doing. Take some fundamental courses. WeCloudData has free Python and SQL, like, self-paced courses. You can go to learn.weclouddata.com. That's WeCloud Open. You can watch some of those videos and start learning Python SQL. But we also have like the data fundamental course where we cover SQL, Python, and Tableau. Yeah, in terms of options, online courses, college programs, universities, as well as boot camps. I think these are some of the options you can consider. Okay. All right. I'm at the end of my presentation. I hope this session is useful. I see a lot of questions, so I'll try to get to those questions, and feel free to ask questions in the meeting chat, and I'll try my best to get to them. I came in late, so I'm not supposed to ask questions. Would you consider a YouTube channel covering various data science fundamentals and algorithms good for portfolio? Would you consider a waste of time? If you have the questions from Brooke, if you have if you have the time and bandwidth to do that, I absolutely think it's a brilliant idea. Um, yeah, it could be even better than on the blog post, but I would encourage that. We have students who do that and get jobs. So they basically, well, another suggestion I have is, if you don't are not in this to sort of do this, like keep doing this over time, then maybe just create a YouTube channel and then you have 3 portfolio projects and just record your presentation and upload that. That will help too, right? And you can put that on your resume, put the link and share that with the hiring managers. But of course, make sure that it's a decent presentation, and I think it will be very helpful. Yeah. What freelance website would you recommend for people looking for data science? I think there are a lot of options. We tried to hire freelancers from Upwork. We did Upwork before, looking for people who can help us with the website, who know how to build web applications. So Upwork, freelancer.com, and these are, but I think it's not that easy to get a freelance project. So again, it comes back to why would someone, pay you on an hourly basis and give you their data problem and let you solve it, right? I think it's relatively easier to get like, a web design type of freelance opportunity, and you just need to have like, well, still like you need to have like an awesome portfolio yourself. Like most of the front end developers, they have to have a portfolio to show the work they've done, so people can check them out, and that gives them the confidence, right? But the tricky thing about data is that why would people give you their sensitive data or the data about their customer? And so it takes even more effort to build that trust for people to even give you that. So yeah, I think that would be and that's why it's important for you to have like blog posts. And now that I think about it, having a YouTube channel is even better because it's the real person and it's your real voice, and that all helps build trust. And you're trying to establish yourself as like a domain expert, right? Maybe the hiring manager thinks that you're still junior, but the client or the potential client, they may actually think you're pretty cool and you can help them solve the problem, right? But if all you have is just a resume, I don't think you'll be able to convince people. So please share some good project site and how to select them. Um, I I'm not sure what you mean good project site. Are you referring to like websites where you can get project ideas? Then still you can go to Kaggle. Kaggle is a really good place for you to find useful data set. Or just be creative and put put the right keywords, combination of keywords into Google. Let's say like machine learning healthcare data set or something like that. But you always need to add like a domain. Is it insurance, right? And see if you can find open data. And if you know how to collect data yourself, then um, there are a lot of there's a lot of potential here. It all depends on what are some of the interesting problems to you. Go find similar websites and do some web data collection. That will definitely help, right? Currently in data analytics bootcamp for 2 months. May I know what are some of the suggestions for data analytics in the current job market in Toronto? Um, so I would highly recommend you go through the job market report that we published this month, about two weeks ago. It has I think the most current job market data in North America. Um, yeah, I would try to do this on a monthly basis, but for example, it tells you the number of jobs from one of the sources. The entire, like if you look at the entire market, there are definitely more jobs. But if you get, I don't know, this is um, let's say August 22nd. That's I have to do the math, but that's a couple of hundred new jobs, like the net new jobs every day. That means in a month you're gonna get 5,000 new jobs. Um, but I believe this is North America, not just Canada, because Canada will be way smaller than the US. US market is usually 10 times bigger considering the population difference. It tells you that data analytics is actually in higher demand, right? This is data analyst jobs. But it's of course the entry bar is lower, so it's also very competitive. So that sort of evens out. It doesn't mean it's easier for you to get a data analyst job. There are more competitors out there for sure. Um, but in general, yeah, you're gonna get more data analyst jobs. So my recommendation for data scientist is that unless, right, you made up your mind, you're only going to apply for machine learning related jobs, then my recommendation is just go deeper. A data science boot camp is not going to be enough. Like just do deep learning, AI, just learn more, right? And work on more projects. However, for anyone who graduates from a boot camp or a master's degree, I think you should be open to data analytics jobs as well. Like think about how tough the market is. So if you have data scientist skill set, you should be open to apply for any type of data analytics jobs, right? Provided that it's still going to be the skill set that you're comfortable with, you're interested in applying, right? If it's a data analyst or business analyst jobs that primarily use, let's say, VBA or Excel, maybe you're not excited about it, then don't worry about it. But a ton of data analytics jobs require Tableau, Power BI, Python, and SQL as well. And some of those data analyst jobs require predictive modeling, which is basically machine learning as well. Okay, so just you have to read the job description to decide if that's something you're interested in. But the good thing about joining a data science program is that you can always apply for data analyst jobs. Right? Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of interesting statistics here. And I think we did some analyses on, the minimum education requirement, and you can see that actually there are more jobs asking or either not even mentioning degree requirement or they just mentioned bachelor's. They didn't, um, not that many jobs. But I think this is the total number, like, adding up all data engineering, data analytics, and data science. So if you look at only data scientist jobs, I think we need to share more specific statistics here. But if you only look at data scientists, then it will be roughly like 35% of jobs ask for a bachelor's, and about 40% of those jobs ask for a master's, and some of those jobs will mention PhD, but it doesn't mean that you have to have a PhD, right? So if you don't have a PhD, you still have a good opportunity to meet the minimum requirement of those jobs. Okay. I think we also did some analysis on the keywords, and you can see that SQL, Excel, Tableau, and Python, Power BI, these are absolutely the most important skills. And if you see jobs that focus more on Excel, that means it's not going to be a very technical job, but you're still going to, you need to have a strong data sense and know how to process data using Excel. But if they already primarily rely on Excel, then you're probably not going to use a lot of Python. You have to decide for yourself if this is something you would be interested in. I've seen a lot of Excel users who are really, really good, extremely good at data analysis, right? It doesn't mean that you know programming and advanced tools, you can become a better data analyst, right? Because the analytical thinking and analytical skills are more important. And Python is really just a tool for you to manipulate data. So from that perspective, the tools don't matter. But unfortunately, in the job market, right, a lot of jobs will ask, you ask for Python skills, and you still need to have those skills, right, in order to meet the minimum requirement. For jobs focusing on machine learning, then PyTorch, right, TensorFlow. So these are directly related to deep learning, AI, and Python is still very important. Okay. And then you start to see things like deployment, cloud. That's because machine learning engineers typically deploy models in production. So you need to know how to work with cloud and do deployment. So it touches more on software engineering as well. Okay. For data engineers, SQL and Python, again, very important. And then definitely you need to be comfortable with cloud platforms. You need to be familiar with big data tools, Snowflake, right, data warehouse. So these are some of the key skills you need to have. And for data scientists, again, coding skills are always, on the top, right? Because most likely every job description will mention Python or SQL. And I think we didn't include data science and machine learning type of keywords here. That's why you don't see it here. But in terms of the tools, Tableau for visualization, Apache Spark for big data, Amazon Web Services is important as well. Okay. There's some discussions about data analyst jobs. Take a look at it. It looks like 20% of those. So it looks like 80% of the data analyst jobs, minimum education requirement is just bachelor's. That's good news if you're kind of worried about education background. And then these are the salary buckets. But this is based on the known data. So I think only 30% of the jobs we scraped, they include the salary range information. So take it with a grain of salt. But we also sort of combined this with some of the publicly available data from Indeed and from Glassdoor. So it should be within the ballpark. Okay. Yeah, and then we did some analysis for data engineer, data scientist. Definitely look into this. Okay. I have good resume and graduated from top universities. Can I how can I show it is strong for job too? I have strong programming skills for university projects, not job experience. Um, so if you graduate from top universities, that's one advantage you have. Some employers they do care about the education, like the schools, right? If you graduate from top school, then definitely you have some advantage. But I wouldn't say it's like a huge advantage you have. Again, like they're still looking for experience and tools and skills you have. If you have strong programming skills, try not to sort of appear as a software engineers or programmer, because I don't think it's gonna, be in your favor if they're looking for someone who's, experienced in data analysis and data science. But you should sort of package or brand yourself as a data scientist that has really strong coding skills. And because people know that a lot of data scientists are career switchers, they don't necessarily come from computer science. They can write Python code to do analyses. They're good at visualizations and machine learning, but it's not a lot of series like software engineering type of coding, right? So if you can show that you have really strong programming skills, but show that in the context of machine learning. For example, have you built machine learning APIs? Have you deployed machine learning models? And all of these are going to add value, I think. So it's sort of going to help you get a machine learning engineering job that focus more on the machine learning side, if that's what you're looking for. Um, but if you're just looking for a regular data science job, then I think you definitely need to work on some portfolio projects. Otherwise, it will be hard to stand out. If you're trying to get into the field of machine learning, you're a computer scientist and love programming, what would be the job title that I should focus more on? Data scientist or machine learning engineer? Um, yeah, if you come from computer science background and you have machine learning experience, then yeah, I would say machine learning engineering is in very good demand right now. It's sort of like the more advanced version of data scientist, but then machine learning engineers also understand software development lifecycle, which means you can not only build, like train and tune machine learning models, you understand cloud, you understand how to deploy the models as endpoint. And when you put things in production, you understand how to scale things faster, lower latency, right? Scalability, um, and these are actually very important, especially when companies are starting to do more like generative AI. Um, you can do large language modeling, but it's not about like is if you just want to play with some of the large language models in a sandbox environment, you can just work with ChatGPT. But if companies want to fine tune and build their own large language models, it got to be turned into an application, whether it's a chatbot. But if you are building a chatbot, you're not going to be using Streamlit, which also provides this capability, but you want to deploy that in production, um, then computer science skills will become very useful and very helpful. So uh, every project you do, make sure you have a GitHub and your code looks nice. Like you write a lot of functions instead of like, because when you work, do things in Jupyter notebooks, you tend to repeat your code. A lot of people don't write functions, right? So when you do visualizations, you're just copying the code from the previous blocks and paste them, and then just do the same thing over and over. That's not a good habit. Then I don't think you're going to get a serious machine learning engineer job if that's what your code look like, right? So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Will certifications from Databricks or Snowflake give us an edge in the current market? I I think having a certification is always going to be helpful, but you just don't know when, right? And you don't know if it's going to pay you off, because I think it adds some sort of credibility, right, to whatever you put on the resume because you got certified. If companies are looking for someone who's more specialized in Databricks, AWS, or Snowflake technologies, then I think this will add value. It means you are familiar with that already. And because everyone can say that they know SQL, they know how to work with databases, but they probably don't know the nuances of Snowflake, right? So in that case, having Snowflake certification will be helpful. But again, Snowflake certification doesn't mean you are a qualified data scientist, because that's not what's what's important in data science. It's more about like even writing SQL queries doesn't mean you're a good data scientist. It's more about like analyzing the results from those SQL queries, right? Um, so project is still the most important, but if you have extra bandwidth, then certification will still help. My suggestion early on, regarding not wasting your time on getting certification is because it's more about just like prioritizing your time. If you're just starting out and you have 6 months, right, to get a job, there's so many things you need to learn, so many projects you need to build. I wouldn't put my time on certification. But maybe after 6 months, when you have everything ready, you're applying for jobs, now you have more time, then get one or two certification will certainly be helpful. Yeah. Yeah. So Vernon has had a question about being interested in physical data science, science research, drug discovery. Should I specialize to that? Should I be more general? I think you should always have a generic version. Because if your resume is more specialized or more geared towards drug discovery and healthcare and some of these, when you use that to apply for startups and insurance company may not be that like banks, it doesn't help you stand out. People may take it the wrong way and they think that you're more specialized in those areas. So I would always recommend having a generic version used to apply for 70% of the jobs. And then you can have a version that's more tailored to physical science, research, drug discovery. But definitely work on some of those projects, like portfolio project. You can definitely find data sets related to that on Kaggle as well. What gaps have you seen between data science applicants who were self-taught, boot camps with real-world work experience, and those with formal education, also with real world work experience? How could self-taught applicants bridge that gap? By real world experience, do you mean like the data science experience or uh like other work experience? Oh, data science project experience. Um, yeah, so when it comes to like formal education, like going through a master's, I would say, well, first of all, like you need to make a decision, right? Because the cost is obviously higher, and the time cost is also very high. But like if you can go through the grind, 1 or 2 years, I think it's still useful, right? Even though the tuition is way higher, but a lot of employers they still would prefer someone who has a master's of computer science, for example. Um, and it's still very much valuable, right? If you have like a MMA, Masters of Management and Analytics, Computer Science, Master of Data Science, or even MBA, right? MBA is probably less relevant because it's not that technical. But anyways, formal education is always useful. Comparing that to bootcamp graduates, I would say bootcamp graduates are typically more, the things they learn is more practical because they don't have to go through a lot of assignments and exercises. They don't have to do a lot of the theory. And let's say if you do a master's computer science, then You have to do a lot of assignment, write a lot of Java code, right? If you take a Java course and data structures, those are definitely things that will help you build a stronger foundation. But in terms of getting your first data science job, it's not going to help you that much. So if you have project experience and bootcamp experience, you can get a job faster than someone who invested time in a master's degree, because you need to spend a year and a half. And after graduation, you still need to go through the same process. And it doesn't mean that you're going to get a job faster, because companies will look for, because think about, if you are making a decision right now, then 6 months later with a boot camp and some real client project, you already have the experience you need to look for jobs. But with a master's program, you have to be more patient, right? You need to put in more work. But in the longer term, I would say having a master's is always going to help you, right? So I've seen some of our alumni, like they join a boot camp, they work on real client project, they get a job, and then after a year or two, like I start to receive like requests to write them like a recommendation letter, because they're applying for a master's of computer science or MBA now. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, but it really depends on what life stage you're at right now. Like, is getting a job like the key thing, right? So I see some student going down the path of invest in a boot camp. It's not cheap, but I get a job relatively faster, and they start to earn like income and also gain data scientist experience. And then at the meantime, they apply for a master's in computer science to get even more like, specialized in that area if they want to go down a technical path, or maybe go with MBA. But if you have a full-time job right now, right, and you're thinking about, well, should I just switch to data science directly, or should I go through a master? It all depends on time, constraint, and also budget, and how much patience you have. So yeah. But investing in masters, I even though we run boot camps, I still think masters is worth it. Right? It always looks good on your, resume. But if your goal is just to get a job in data science and always work with the most sort of cutting edge technologies, then I wouldn't go back to, like, if that's your goal, I wouldn't do a master's, because you're never going to learn the most cutting edge things in a master's degree, right? Right now, the hottest thing in the market is large language model, RAG, fine tunings, cloud, MLOps. None of those are taught in a master's program. They can cover some of things superficially, but it's not going to be deep enough. And also, the innovation happens in an industry where they actually have real data, real business problems. So the things you learn in a master program is almost always outdated. The only good thing is that you're going to learn data structure, you're going to learn computer science and systems, the fundamental stuff that helps you build a stronger foundation, but it doesn't necessarily turn you into like a very pragmatic data scientist over time, right? So you still need those work experience. Yeah, absolutely. You have my email. You can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Uh, Another question, what kind of tools and programming language does a software developer who works on ML use the most? Yeah, so I think we're talking about um, like machine learning engineering. I'm just gonna type it out here. ML engineer, let's say tech stack, right? You'll be, so you need to understand cloud. Let's say Amazon Web Services or Azure or GCP, just pick one of them, right? So that means you need to understand ML infrastructure. But cloud is really just infrastructure, but you also need to work with frameworks and platforms such as Docker, how to containerize your applications, okay? And also some Kubernetes, which means if you're deploying large scale machine learning problems, and right, you need to deploy the Docker containers to an orchestrator, Kubernetes. So, but these are probably companies have bigger problems. Right? Most of the time, or if you're working on a smaller scale machine learning product, maybe Docker deployed on Amazon ECS is good enough, right? And maybe a little bit big data. This really depends. If you work for an ad agency, digital agency, right? They deal with billions of data points every single day, and you have to work with Apache Spark, right? You have to work with big data, at least do processing. For model deployment, there are many different options. You can work with, Flask or Fast API, but this is probably the easiest one, but it's not always production ready. So you might need to work with some other programming languages if you want to build low latency applications, but it will work most of the time, I would say, right? But then you have to containerize all of your, model endpoints. You need to understand like model format, like Onyx, right? What is the how do you package your models, for example? What format you're going to use? Right? When you do model training and experimentation, things like ML Flow are some of the framework you can look into, but this is more like for model tracking, deployment, and they're also monitoring. Once you deploy the model in production, the work doesn't end there, right? Because what if your model, like you just pushed a new model, like because data scientists will be able to refresh the model even on a daily and hourly basis, and this process can even be automated, right? When you deploy things in production, how do you guarantee that the changes you make to your model works not only on the training and testing data set, but when you deploy that to production, it also works perfectly. And you have to do monitoring in production. You need to monitor the feature drift, right? And the underlying data, distributions and things like that. When you scale things, you build APIs, you want to monitor the traffic as well. So some of those touches a little bit on DevOps. So I would say in machine learning engineering, it has, there are people who focus on model engineering, right? So they're focusing more on NLP, computer vision, large language modeling, but there are also people who focus on MLOps engineering. I think right now there are also the concept of large language model ops, right? Things like that. But yeah, two different types of MLE. Could be a little bit confusing sometimes. Okay, and CI/CD and version control for sure. Model testing and things like that. Can you get into data science with just an undergrad in computer science, statistics, along with experience working as a data analyst? Yeah, absolutely. As I just showed you, I think data scientist jobs, like 30% of the, no, sorry, 40, 50% of those jobs will mention master's, PhD, but that means like almost half of them, like 40%, 45% of those, undergrad is good enough. So experience is very important. And you have an undergrad in computer science, statistics, that's actually quite relevant. Yeah. We had a lot of students from undergrad background who got data scientist jobs. Another question about job search. Searching on Indeed seems that most of them require a minimum of 2 to 3 years of relevant work experiences, sometimes a bachelor degree in related field. What if I'm making a career change and do not have direct work experience and have a bachelor in arts? Can I still apply for those jobs, and how could I highlight myself? Yeah, so I think we talked about this at the beginning of this session. Experience is the most important thing in job search. It's not the degree. So I think if you're switching jobs from arts, right, background, you do have some disadvantage, but it's not a huge gap, to be honest, because most of the time employers will be looking at what you can do. So basically the way to look at this is that, first of all, employers are rarely going to say, does this person have a master's or PhD? Well, unless it's some specific role that needs more specialized like machine learning skills, but most of the data scientist jobs out there are not like that. Right? They want you to know machine learning, but you're still going to do a lot of data analysis, data preparation. It's not always going to be like building models all day long. So they will be looking at experience. Like, first of all, do you have the right skills? So I believe you're doing a data analytics bootcamp. So that means you have acquired these data analytics and data science skills. So it goes on your resume. And then they're going to be looking at your experience. And well, of course, you need to have experience. If you don't, as I said, if you don't have industry experience or relevant experience, then go with like a real client project or go with portfolio project. You absolutely have to build a very strong portfolio project. If you're talking about data analytics, and it's actually very easy for you to show like what you've done, which is dashboard, right? Dashboard will always be very helpful. And then um, if and then let's say there are two candidates, right? One person has a computer science, the other person is coming from arts background, but at least the employers will be looking at skills. Both have skills, both have experience or project experience. And then when they make a decision, say, okay, this person actually had a master's of computer science or something, he does seem to have some advantage, right? So if that's the case, then yeah, that the other person or candidate will have more advantage. But what can we do? Like if you are determined to make this switch, all you need to do or all you can do is really just to focus more on projects, increase your experience. 2 to 3 is not enough. Increase that to be 4, to be 5, diversify it, right? Don't just work on the same problem, similar type of problem, work on different problems. And as I said, add some data engineering experience, right? Add a little bit MLOps experience if you can, build something end to end, even doing web scraping. Some people think that, well, why should I do web scraping as a data scientist? I can tell you that gives you an advantage. And you got to trust me on this. And then by adding those little things, your profile looks like a more complete profile. You appear to be just a little bit more experienced. And people will start thinking, okay, this is a master's of data computer science, and this is someone who actually can do a lot of things already. And I would prefer to hire someone like you. So you cannot change the fact that you don't have a computer science unless you go back to school. So you know, as of right now, I think all you can do is just focus on projects. But again, don't work on those Kaggle projects over and over again. It's not going to help you that much. You have to really think about how to build a project and get some inspirations and suggestions from people who are more experienced to give you suggestions. Okay. Data scraping, it's like it's just web scraping. For example, if you want to do some competitive analysis, right? Let's say you run a company that has some sort of like some sort of like product, right? You're selling it online on your website, and then you're doing, SEO or Google Ads to drive traffic to your website. But you also want to understand how your competitors are doing, right? Or let's say for boot camps, WeCloudData may want to know how other boot camps, right, or other schools are doing on course review website. And I know we have pretty good, decent reviews, but are there schools that have good reviews as well? But maybe I want to know, hey, when people like rate you 4-star, another school 4-star, are they talking about the same thing? Is it, why would people rate WeCloudData 5 stars? Is it mainly because of the career support or some sort of real project? And then with other schools, is it the experience or is it their instructors that, that are really good? And that's something that's really useful. But it requires you to be able to sort of collect data first because the data is not prepared for you. And you have to do the data scraping to collect data from those websites and then do your own analysis. So, and those are your original idea. I think those will be very helpful. Um, from your experience, how tiny is the chance landing a data science job without internal referral? Applying through open channels. Yeah, I wouldn't say I would say how big is the chance instead of how tiny, because you're trying to assume it's already tiny. No problem, but I'm trying to encourage you. I think first of all, WeCloudData has internal referrals. But it's not like every single day you'll have referrals. We haven't focused that much on uh, referrals, mainly because our business model is a little bit different. We help students build experience through real client project. So we have like a real client project course where you actually get put on consulting projects to work with different clients. Some of those are, students will start from internal projects that can complete relatively faster while they're waiting for some other external, like, client project opportunities. Those allow them to add, the real client project experience on the resume, right? So most of our students will be able to get jobs and get interviews just because of that. And that's why we're not that big on referrals. But of course, we always have referrals. So for example, recently, but to answer your question, if you have internal referral opportunity, it's always going to be way better. Because your resume go directly to the hiring managers or recruiters. I'll tell you, one of the reasons why I know the job market is bouncing back recently is because in the beginning of the year, it was pretty tough, and they're also like our hiring partners. I don't hear a lot from them, um, and just recently, for example, on the machine learning engineering side, so in the AI bootcamp, someone is actually one of our mentors and also alumni. He worked for a US company, and his company sort of cut jobs during uh, like during COVID, right? And now he said we're looking for AI engineers. I think some of the data science students or some of the ML engineering bootcamp students, sent me some of their profiles. And then he said we have 5 openings, right? And about 2 weeks ago, some companies inquired about talents and also like AI, like large language model training. And I had a chat with them, and they said they want to send a team of new hire, and said how many new hires they have. They said they hired like 4 people. So that's a sign of companies starting to rehire a lot of people, and seems like they've been sort of having job cut or hiring freeze, and all of a sudden they actually have multiple openings. So that's a really good sign. And also, like I think I briefly mentioned that there's like a director in a insurance companies that's looking for mixed or hybrid talent, right? She's looking for data scientists. Originally, we referred a lot of students to her, and then I realized that she's looking for someone who's more senior. But then she came back and said, "Now I finally have a more junior position, but I need this person to know data engineering as well. And then in the future, she will be mainly focusing on data science. And looks like she had multiple roles as well. So yeah, but the good thing about referral is that for that AI company that have hired 5 AI engineers, as far as I know, just in a matter of days, they had more than like 800 applicants, and they just stopped because it's too much for them, and then it's impossible to stand out. But at least like we referred a couple of students, like 4 of them got interviews because they're and one of the student already got a job. I'm actually doing a reference check tomorrow morning with the hiring manager, and the pay is really good. So yeah, so to answer a question, I think it took me quite a while to answer a question. Having internal opportunity, referral opportunity is always really, really useful. And that's why a lot of times you don't really hear back from people. It's because some of the jobs are taken by those referrals already, but they still need to post those jobs. And just to be fair, for the banks, for example, they have, even if it's an internal referral, they still need to post a job to make sure that it's fair to other people in the job market. So I guess some sort of regulation, you have to do this, but when the job is posted, they already hired someone. So that's unfortunate. But the good news I would like to give you is that most of our students got jobs just on their own because they have real client project or because they have some other, really great experience in the past. So I wouldn't say that this is the primary reason our students getting offers and jobs. We do have like 90.9% placement rate in the data science bootcamp in 2021, based on the, education ministry survey. So yeah, I hope this is good news to you and give you some confidence. Applying through open channels absolutely help, like work. And yeah, so, but I think right now, if you apply for 100 to 150 jobs, and if you can get like 10 interviews, that's really good ratio. In the past, it will be a lot higher, like 20-30%, but right now, like 8 to 10% is not bad, considering like 800 people competing for one job. So that means you have to be more diligent, apply for more jobs for sure. I recently moved to Canada. I have relevant 3 years of experience as a data engineer and a total of 6 years looking for a job as a data engineer for the past 3-4 months. Applied everywhere, but I didn't get a call. I changed the resume 2-3 times to match the Canada style resume. Also, but nothing works. What could be wrong? Also not getting any referral also. Yeah, this is case by case now. I've worked with a lot of students who are landed immigrants. They actually have really good experience in the past in their home country. Um, yeah, I agree with you. Like adding some like Canadian or US experience will be helpful. But in this case, I'm not sure about your experience. Like, because you have to know what's relevant in like what's in demand in the market right now is analytics engineering, like building modern data stack and data warehouses, having experience with cloud migration, helping companies move to the cloud, which means you need to sort of know data architecture as well, or just big data and real-time analytics. If these are experiences you have, and you're still like with 3-6 years of experience still not getting interviews, and the problem might be with your resume. It's definitely not the Canadian experience or not. Yeah, it's definitely the way you write a resume. Because I can tell you that our data engineering graduates who are less experienced than you, they can get interviews. So yeah. Can we ask from someone that we meet on LinkedIn to be our referral or recommend us to a hiring team? Yeah, it always works, but the thing is, the chance is very slim, because these people are probably got contacted by a lot of people, other job seekers, and they really have to have a good reason to do that. When it comes to referral, most people don't. So okay, you have to understand the motivation behind referral. Sometimes you come across people who just like to refer everyone. That's because the company will pay them referral fee. So they don't care about the quality. They just refer their friends. If their friends can get a job, then they get a couple of $1,000 as referral fee. And they just do this like this happens usually in big companies where the referee just provide like the name and contact information of the referrer, and then they sort of be able to link that in the database and know who referred you. But most people would not refer you because it's like your personal reputation, right? Like if you refer someone to the hiring manager and it turns out that this is not the right candidate, then you lose some credibility there. People will not want to work with you like on referral in the future. So most of the people, if they don't know you very well, I don't think they will be willing to do that. But it doesn't mean it's not possible, right? So that means, again, how do we get freelance opportunity? How do we get someone to refer you? Or how do we get a job, right? It all depends on the preparation you do, and you still like need to prove to those people that you're worth the referral. And I would definitely start a conversation and show them my portfolio and GitHub and ask them to give you some feedback. And also depends on how lucky you are, because some people are just like more genuinely available and willing to help people, and some people are just like just don't bother, like I'm already very busy and they are not willing to help. So it depends on like so I guess you have to cast a wider net. If you decide to go with this approach, then just you have to be persistent and just keep doing that and do a lot of those, and I think it will pay you off. But I wouldn't put everything in one basket. You would definitely try Indeed on LinkedIn and just apply in the open channel and try for referrals as well. There are like many things you need to do. So it's like a full-time job on its own, right? Cool. Yeah, I think I answered most of all the questions in the channel. Just wait a bit and see if you guys have more questions. If not, I think this is the end of this session. I hope you guys find it useful. Yeah, I'd just like to give a shout out to WeCloudData's Data Science Bootcamp. And we've been sort of teaching data science for years. And if there's one thing that I think helps WeCloudData's program stand out is the real client project opportunity. So yeah, we always have projects starting out working with real clients, and you get the mentorship you need, working a small project team. And all of these experiences will really help you to put experience on the resume, and it will help you beat 90% of the people out there. Yeah, so if you find it, interesting, definitely go to WeCloudData's website and you'll be able to find our information. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great evening. And we have some other data engineering and AI related, information sessions in the next few weeks. If you'd like to learn more, feel free to join us. And I'll talk to you guys soon.